haven't been dreaming this whole time. This hasn't just been in my head this whole time. Like, this is real. Like, this has been happening. Never in my life had I ever felt that way. I was seen, like really seen.
So Leigh-Anne, welcome to Audible.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to talk to you about your brand new book.
Yay!
It's called Believe, and I wanted to ask first, why did you pick that as the title?
I feel like it made the most sense. I think it's the word that I've just always had on my journey. Like, that's always been my motto, I guess. I've got it tattooed in the back of my neck when I was like 18. I think going through like my childhood years and into my teens, I had a lot of like negative people around me and people putting me down and making me feel like I couldn't accomplish my dream, and just a lot of setbacks, and it just became a word that just urged me to keep going and to keep moving and to not listen to them and just do what I had to do, and that was get my dream.
Yeah. I feel like in your late teens, realising that you need self-belief and you need to cultivate that yourself, it's quite like mature and grown up. Was there something that just clicked for you and you were like, no, I've got to do this for myself?
I think I was just so adamant that I had to be a pop star. Like, I just wanted to sing.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what it was in me that made me so determined. But like, I remember meeting people like now, and they say to me, like, I remember back then, and when you met me, or like when we spoke, you said, the first thing you said to me was, I'm going to be a pop star. And I was like, did I say that? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, gosh, I really was determined, wasn't I? Like meeting people and telling them that. I think I just had it in me from my mum, and like how hardworking she is and how she instilled that into us, and me and my sisters. And my sisters as well, like, they are go-getters. Like, they're super hardworking. So I feel like that was all in me. But I just loved to sing. And I just knew it was what I had to do and what I wanted to be.
And so you get to that X Factor audition, you know, you've gone through all the behind-the-scenes bits and you're in front of the judges. What did it feel like when they asked you to sing again, to ask you to do that a cappella bit? Because that has always struck me watching the show as a moment where you're like, oh God, I wouldn't want to be in that position to go again.
Yeah, well, I'm actually happy they did, because I just got back from Ibiza, and I literally, like, the next day was my audition, and I'd gone in hard. Like, I was 17, 18. Obviously my first girls' holiday with my best friend, and yeah, we just went in, and my voice was like ruined. Like, I just felt awful, but I just had to give it my all. Like, this was my one opportunity, so I just started jumping around the stage and hope for the best. And I think that was probably the most confident anyone had ever seen me. Like, it was like I knew that this was my one chance. But vocally, I was like, no, I can do so much better than that. And then I think I was able to show that in the second song. So I was grateful that they asked me to do that. But the whole thing literally felt like I was watching it on TV. Like, when I was looking at the judges, it felt like it just didn't feel real. It was just so crazy.
Yeah, and you write in the book how you were quite a shy kid, even though you loved to sing. You were quite shy with the performance. So how did you grow your confidence there?
It was like a weird one. Like, I was super painfully shy, but I loved to sing. And I would get up on stage and I would stare at the floor, and the backing track would always be too loud. And I would always be there, like, murmuring something. But knowing that I wanted to do this so bad, but being annoyed that this shyness was kind of like taking over. But for me, I felt like the more that I performed and the more that I was on stage, I think it started to unleashed inside of me, I think, like, the more that I did it. But really, I think X Factor was that one moment where I just kind of came out of myself. And I really do believe that something was telling me, just go for this, just get it, take it, just do it. And I did.
Yeah. And what did it feel like to go from that to being in a girl band and suddenly being famous?
Overnight.
Yeah.
It's a weird one because I don't think none of us had time to process any of that. So we were just thrown into it. Literally, like, all of a sudden people know who you are. and you're getting papped, and like people are talking about you on social media, and because social media had just come about then as well, so that was a new thing to kind of grapple with. So yeah, it was strange, but at the same time, like, we were having so much fun and kind of just taking it all in our stride, I guess. But yeah, whirlwind.
Yeah. And in the book, you sort of write about your journey of self-belief and when things started to kind of become harder for you to hold on to that internally. And one of the first things you write is about how once you were in the band, you started questioning the way you looked and you sort of started having insecurities about what you looked like. How did that come about?
Being put into a girl group, we all wanted to find our identity. We wanted to, I don't know, like, be known for something, you know? So that was something, like, at the start that I really struggled with because I just didn't know what was my thing. And I felt like every other girl, like, had something. Like, Jade was, like, the cute one from South Shields. Like, Perry was this beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, gorgeous, incredible singer. And then Jessie, obviously, like, was, like, the inspirational one. And I felt like everyone had their thing. And I don't know, like, I went through a stage of thinking, or maybe I'll be the sexy one. Maybe I'll wear, like, tight dresses. And then I kind of, like, had this hairstyle once, and it was, like, this quiff with a ponytail. And maybe that could be my thing. I could always have the same hair. And it was just such a struggle. And it was like nothing seemed to work for me. And I just found myself, like, fading more and more into the background. When really I should have just looked at myself and just thought you're enough as who you are. And everything that makes you you is your thing because you were the only one of you, you know? And, like, that's an incredible thing.
Yeah. And when did you start to realise the things that might be contributing towards that feeling of not feeling yourself or feeling invisible?
I think quite early on. I think on the X Factor, there was one show where they took my lines away, which I speak about. It was Telephone, Lady Gaga. And I remember calling my sister and telling her, and I was so upset. And it wasn't even like a conversation or you could do this part or let's help you with this part or whatever. It was just like, you're not singing that on the night. You're not singing that. This girl's singing that. And I was like, wow. And then my sister was like, go up there and dance like you've never danced before because they're not going to hear you, but they're going to see you. And if you watch it, I am giving it in that choreo. So I feel like it was on the show. Because before that, I was still this determined girl that did have confidence in her voice and did have confidence in who she was. And I remember myself at school and I was like, not loud, but I'd had that energy about me. And then I think it was the show that kind of started to take that away from me. And then I guess after that, I started to notice that the fans weren't responding to me personally as much as they were to the other girls. And like, there were times where, like, the fans would, like, walk past me or like there was one time when they asked me to take the picture with another girl with a fan, and I was like, I literally said no and walked off because I was just like, oh. But these little things, I guess, just kept sort of happening, and that just contributed to me not feeling good enough.
Yeah. Were you able to speak to your bandmates at the time about feeling that, you know, how the industry was invalidating you and how, you know, there were fans that weren't turning up for you?
I remember, like, having, like, little jokes about it sometimes. I'll be like, oh, they don't care about me anyway, and, like, laughing it off. But, like, not, like, in-depth conversations. I think sometimes I'd, like when I'd get upset, I was mainly to my manager at the time. And it was always like, oh, but it's in your head, like, in, like, a loving way, like, trying to reassure me. Like, no, it's not that. Don't be silly. Like, it's fine. Like, you're amazing. And bless her, she just tried to lift me up. But it was just never like a definite, okay, this is happening because of the colour of your skin. Like, this is probably why this is happening.
Yeah.
Like, there was no recognition of that at all at the beginning. So it was just really confusing, and I just put it down to me just not being good.
And when did someone first say, or when did you first think to yourself, no, this is racism?
I feel like there was a couple of moments where I didn't feel as alone, and I was like, okay, like, because a lot of the time it felt like, because I was always away with the girls, like we were always everywhere. There wasn't many moments that I could step away from it and evaluate it or like look at it from outside in, if that makes sense, because we was always in it. So I guess one of the times was when I read Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race. When I read that book, I was like, okay, yeah, like this feels very like relatable here. Like, and if you think as well, back then people weren't really talking about race like they are now. They just weren't. And those conversations were very, is taboo the word? Like, people just wouldn't really talk about it openly. It would almost be like a icky sort of conversation to have, especially to white people who just, and I remember another time as well was Brazil, where I was performing to a predominantly black crowd, and they were calling my name and they were screaming for me, and like they literally chanted my name first. And never in my life, and I travelled all around the world in that group, had I ever felt that way. I was seen, like really seen. So that was another like awakening moment for me.
And that was right at the start of 2020, right?
I think it was at the end of, right at the start of 2020. Yeah,
just before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So having that kind of having that validation and kind of seeing what the problem had been in the past, then going into lockdown and all the, you know, weirdness of that, did that actually give you some time to kind of reflect and think through what had been happening and to find yourself a bit again?
So, yeah, obviously we got back from Brazil and I had all these new feelings and this sort of like reckoning or whatever. And if anything, it made me, like, I just remember being hysterical to my husband and just saying, like, why? I think it was the fact that I kind of knew what was happening, so it just made it almost like feel worse. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I feel so like irrelevant in this group. Like, it's like there's nothing I can do to be on their level. Like, this is just exhausting at this point. Like, I just don't know what to do anymore. And I remember where I was when I was literally just like in tears with him, and I just felt so like helpless, and I don't even want to put it down to like likes or this or whatever, but social media, I think, was one of the things that I was looking at all the time and like comparing things all the time. And it's just like, it sounds really pathetic, but when it's part of your job and you have to be on it and you have to post all the time, and like that was just another thing that was coming into play. But yeah, I just felt helpless.
So in 2020, and as the pandemic progressed, what changed? Because I feel like from reading the book and even just chatting to you that you're in a position now where, you know, you have reclaimed your identity.
100%. I mean, after the like tragic killing of George Floyd and the like the BLM movement, and like all of a sudden the whole world was talking about race, and like I'd never seen that in my lifetime. Like, so I just remember talking to my sister, and she was like, "Leigh-Anne, I think you need to speak about your experiences. I think you just need to just be open." And I had already done that in, I think it was like 2018, with ASOS magazine. Like, I did speak about some of my experiences with race, and it fell on deaf ears. Like, nobody cared at that time. So I thought, you know what? Like I was petrified, but she was like, just do it. So I did this video and I really went into to how I was feeling and how I felt like I was being treated differently in the group due to my race. And the amount of support that I got, like from my fans, from other girls in girl bands, like other black girls in girl bands, and like I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I haven't been dreaming this whole time. This hasn't just been in my head this whole time. Like this is real. Like this has been happening. So yeah, I think I just felt really like held by everyone. So I think that was another thing that was like a step towards taking my power back, you know, and like sort of regaining it. So yeah, I guess that happened. I think the more that I've been open, the more I've spoken about it, it is what it is. And I am so freaking proud of who I am and my skin and everything that I am. Yeah, so it's a different person. It's a different girl.
Yeah. And how has your belief changed since you had kids?
Oh, I just think I'm not doing this just for me now. Like I'm doing it for them. And I don't want them to ever face the stuff that I've had to face in the public eye, you know? Like I don't want them to have to struggle with their race. And I know that like there comes a time in everyone's like life, if you are a black person, you will experience racism. Like, and it doesn't matter how much money you have or fame. Like if you're black, you will experience it. So I think that's like always a worry for me, and especially like bringing them up in a predominantly white area as well. Like that always sort of scares me a little bit, and like I worry sometimes about what they could face, but I just want to do everything that I can do so that maybe they don't have to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. And there's another part of the book where, you know, you talk about your relationships and you say that you're a hopeless romantic. So I wondered what the best things and the worst things are about being a hopeless romantic.
Gosh. Well, I love really hard. And I think when I was little, I always wanted this like fairy tale love story. Like I've been planning my wedding dress since I was like 10.
The wedding dress was gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think being quite an emotional person as well. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like if I love, I just give you everything. So I guess that can be quite dangerous sometimes. But on the other hand, I feel like it is my superpower to be able to be vulnerable and put myself out there and love deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's it like to have family members and friends and people start to read your book? What sort of things have people you like know and love said about it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just given people a even better insight, I guess. Like even some people that I work with, and they're like, wow, like when you actually read it in words and just you've literally like poured your heart out, and like that's just such an amazing thing. It's like I feel like I know you more, and I love that. I think with my mum as well, like there's some things that I talk about like with her upbringing and like her dad, and it's stuff that I didn't like say maybe in the last year I only found out, and I think that's because I'm the youngest, and like I feel like my family wanted to kind of protect me from certain things, but even that I feel maybe even closer to my mum just for knowing these things, and like there's just so personal and deep, and getting a better understanding of why my mum is like she is.
Yeah. And what was it like to narrate the audiobook?
Oh, tiring. No, it was, I loved it. And I think what's special is when I'm reading it, you can hear my emotion because it's my words, you know, like it's my feelings, and yeah, it's real. So yeah, I'm excited for people to listen to that. I got very emotional reading it back, actually, because it's different from reading it in your head to actually reading it out loud, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you go to therapy and you say the things out loud and suddenly you're like bawling.
Oh my
Like, where did
gosh,
that come
yeah.
from?
But I do think, like, I'm so proud that I've done it. But it definitely was like a exhausting experience as well at the same time, because like reliving certain things and like talking about certain things like can be, it's hard. But I just hope that it helps people and people can relate to it. And
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leigh-Anne. It's been such a pleasure to chat to you.
thank you.